back to Comedy Means Business, where we talk about the people, trends, and institutions shaping the comedy industry. Today, we're talking about Long Live the State, a new documentary on the State, the iconic sketch group formed at NYU in the late 1980s. This is a group that's produced countless names that any comedy fan should know. David Wain, Ken Marino, Michael Showalter, Joe Lo Truglio, Michael Ian Black, Thomas Lennon, and more. All of them comedic multi-hyphenates who have gone on to enduring careers in front of and behind the camera. Recently premiering at the Tribeca Festival, the doc delves into the highs and lows of the State's experience making their cult hit MTV sketch series of the same name, and their enduring legacy in comedy. With us to unpack it all, we have three of the group's original members, David Wain, Ken Marino, and Joe Lo Truglio, as well as filmmaker Matthew Perniciaro. Before we begin, a quick heads up. Joe Lo Truglio joined us from Ireland, so his audio isn't quite as clear, and he steps away for a family function about halfway through. Apologies. But with all that said, let's jump in. You've all just come off the Tribeca premiere of Long Live the State. How was it? Did you all make it?
We all made it through. Yeah. I know I was nervous, but it was a really emotional night for me, I think for a lot of the group. And Matt worked so hard on taking care of, painting a picture of the friendship that we've had over the past 30 years. And I think he did a great job. And so, yeah, I'll just start with that kind of platitude. But it was really wonderful to be with my friends that I've known for 30 years, since I was 17 years old. And it was a really special night.
Is somebody holding you at gunpoint off camera?
I got a guy there.
He's the bartender there. It's under the bar though.
Yeah, no, it was a wonderful night. It was interesting too because Joe had seen an earlier iteration of the film, like an earlier cut. But David and Ken, that was your first time seeing the film, right?
Yeah, and it was a really wild experience for me. Super emotional, and just to see, this fully realized feature film about my group of friends and my life, along with this group of 11 people that we've gone through this whole adventure together over the decades. And I remember I sat next to Carrie in the movie screening, and we're crying and we're laughing and just being like, what an extraordinary thing. Just what a thing that we've all been through. And then for you to tell the story in a way that I think will connect to general people just as an interesting story. It's amazing.
And as you can see, we're still friends. In fact, David and I have been roommates since the 90s. We're still living together.
What has it been like for the members of the State we have here revisiting your earlier work? Has it brought up any memories you'd forgotten along the way?
I know that just being asked about the whole story and going through with the perspective of right now, for me was, insights came. And I remember, and I've spoken to Mike Showalter, who also was just saying, you get a lens on the past when you're asked in a very concentrated way to sit down and talk about it and think about it. And so I thought it was great.
Yeah, for me, I forget a lot of things, and but then watching it, all of these things sort of washed back over me, and it was a fun little visit to my past and our past, and it was sort of it was fun to kind of be there again.
Backing up for a second, like how did the documentary come about? And Matt, what made you kind of want to pursue this as a subject?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of the State since the first season. I was a freshman in high school when the first season came out, and was just hugely influential to me, and was one of those things where I felt like, we talk about finding our people, right? That's a thing we talk about in the film a lot. It's a thing that we talk about kind of in life around the State. It was kind of like you either got it or you didn't. And so for me, I mean, I had like major friendships that developed because of our fandom for the State, and, have been very fortunate to make a lot of movies in the independent space and a lot of documentaries, and had just always thought like, why hasn't anyone ever done anything on the State? And there was a couple of conversations over the year. I bump into someone, hey, I think we should do a documentary. And they'd be like, I don't know. And Joe and I had worked together on a movie about 20 years ago. And so when I saw that the group was doing the live shows, the tour, I was like, if there was ever a time for me to shoot my shot, this is it. And so I emailed Joe and I was like, I want to pitch you guys this concept and this idea, and the timing turned out to be right. And we all got on Zoom about a week after that. And I think it was like a week or two after that, Joe called me and was like, let's do it. So, that was November of 2023.
Was it your first feature as a director? It seemed like you've done things for years as a producer.
It's interesting. It's not my first feature as a director, but it's my first feature to come out as a director.
Okay.
So, I've had streaming series and a lot of short work that's kind of been released on streaming companies and stuff like that as a director. But predominantly, the majority of my career up until the past 5 years was predominantly producing, and then have been segueing into more directing in the documentary.
So it wasn't the case that the documentary was prompted by the recent reunion tour?
It wasn't specific. I just thought it would be a really interesting way into the story, and also knowing that everyone was going to be together, and that there was the ability to film everybody together. It just felt like a really interesting kind of way. And the original concept that I had for the documentary was kind of more of a Nashville type structure, where it was, live scene, history, live scene, history, live scene, and kind of interspersed throughout the whole film. But when we watched it, the pacing never really felt like it gelled in the best way. And the history is so rich that once you were really in those segments, you didn't want to leave them, So the film became, the live tour kind of bookends the film, which really felt like ultimately the right choice creatively.
Do you guys want to talk about the experience of going back on tour with the States during the strikes of 2023?
I thought it was the perfect time to do it. Obviously, speaking for myself, the state are friends that I will keep their friendships for a very long time. But I was nervous about going on tour just because it's been a while since all those personalities were together. But what I realized was that the experience that we all have on this group is so rare that I, personally was very, very excited to be on the stage again. And when we all were up there, you're like, oh yes, that's right. This is wonderful. This is very rare. And I know for me, understanding how rare that connection is, and to have a body of work with friends that mean so much to you is just something to really cherish. And so that was the experience on the tour for me, was a very rewarding one.
I was so struck by the continuum that we were kind of doing exactly what we did when we were 18 at NYU, in the back of some bar or at some little theater at NYU, where we're running around, costumes in the trunk, changing them, jump on stage. No, you do this, and then being funny in the audience. It's just like, we're like, yeah, this is what we have done and always do, scraping things together. And it feels like the good fortune we've had to do that then, and then make low budget, medium budget, whatever, different movies, TV shows together in different configurations, and then to come back and do exactly the thing. And it was just really super cool. And also it was exciting to do new material. Half our show was like stuff that was brand new, and it was very exciting to feel like we're doing it in present tense as well as revisiting, things that people know.
It's interesting that just off of your question, like the rush I got off of the live tour and getting back and doing that was the same sort of rush I felt watching the documentary. Like, it just brought me back to a time when we were all just having a good time and making each other laugh, and doing these silly things, full commitment, and doing the tour, and then watching the documentary and seeing how passionate we were about it back then, and then how equally passionate we were when we got back together and put those stupid costumes back on. We were still like taking it very seriously, even though we were having like a blast doing it,
To me, it's also similar to the rush when I get a big fresh dose of heroin and I just shoot it in my veins. It's like a big, very exciting.
When you have a clean needle and like it's all ready to go.
Clean, and it's sharp, and it just filled to the brim. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I will second that. When David does his heroin, he loves it when it's filled to the brim.
Did this experience ignite any kind of fire or excitement about touring more, or not so much?
Mostly it's get us excited about heroin again.
Yeah, that David survived it. David survived the relapse, and that it was just, and he made it. And
We had such a great time touring, and I think we would happily do more. It was the strike gave us a really good scheduling opportunity for so many people to be able to do it at the same time. But
Yeah.
Should anything happy or sad give us a chance where there's a window again, we would certainly do it.
That's why I'm trying to convince all my union members to strike again.
it's an unorthodox way to get a group of
It's a
friends
weird
back
way
on
to
the
do
road
it,
again. But Ken is that devoted to it.
I just love doing the live shows.
I have to back him. I have to back him on it. And I love my friends, regardless of the working labor conditions.
You mentioned the connection earlier that you guys have, which I think is so rare and so fascinating to me. You see it with sometimes in music, like a whole scene emerging. Like if you took any random improv or sketch group from any college, you'd rarely find maybe one person who ends up doing this professionally. You have this entire scene of people meeting randomly, and everybody in it is popping off and having their own amazing career. David and Ken, you met the first day at NYU, right? And it's not just you guys, it extends far beyond you. Like you mentioned Peter Hedges being like a counselor, like a theater camp counselor to some of you. What do you think that's about? Like, it's such a crazy phenomenon to see the way you guys have gone on to do so much over the course of your careers beyond this.
I think when you go to college and you start kind of a new chapter of your life, you're desperate for connection with people that have the same dreams and the same interests that you have. And I think the state was lucky enough to find that group that loved comedy and that loved working together and, you know, joining forces to kind of fulfill a dream that everyone had individually. And when you meet people at college and you see that this group is around you, it really gives you fuel. And I think it gave the state that extra push to kind of keep going until something happened.
Yeah, and in terms of like, what do we think about like how we all continue to work, or are all still working in this town? It's sort of mind-boggling to me that we got together as a group not 93. We started doing our show in 93, but before that, and now it's 2025.
Yeah,
and we're all still doing the same shit. You know what I mean? And we all like kind of, collected a body of work that I think we're all, proud of and have made, we've just kind of stuck around, and that's mind-boggling to me.
but I think that to me, when I met all this group of people, I was just so blown away. I was like, wow, these people are so funny, and I get it. And it just there was such a kismet, and I feel like we ran around NYU with cameras and on stage and like making jokes, and we just never stopped. Like we just keep doing that. And Ken and I are editing a dumb comedy that we shot today. Like it's
and we're
very fortunate.
We're treating it like Citizen Kane.
One of the things that we talked about in the documentary, I think, is like from moment one when we're 17 years old, we just had this bizarre, crazy work ethic, and we pushed each other to like keep going and be brutal with each other's material and like push. And I just think, for better and worse, it worked out well.
Yeah, and that was for me. I mean, it's interesting. I always have usually a difficult time finding the right titles for the work that I do. And when Long Live the State kind of came to me, I was like, oh, this is perfect, because there's The State, the television show that aired on MTV a few seasons in the mid 90s. But then there's the state, who are these group of people. And I think that was such an important part of this story for me, is not just that, 2-3 year period on MTV, but it was about who are these people before that period, and look at everything that they went on to do afterwards, and how that has changed and inspired and altered kind of the comedy landscape since that time. And that was where that's where the title came. It's not just about this 2 year period. It's about this long beautiful life and career that they've all shared together.
I just want to add that Matt took so much care in this film, and I know that the entire group is really happy with the film, and we're really strong personalities, and it was I was so grateful to Matt to really handle such a delicate history with such care and such passion, and he made a terrific documentary. And I'll also say that the the privilege of like working with friends for this long is that I appreciated throughout the 30 years, but then when you see it in the context of how Matt put it, it's really refreshing and enlivening, and I'm very grateful. So thank you, Matt, and so I just wanted to leave with that because it wasn't an easy task for Matt, and he did a great job, and the entire group really is so happy with what he did, and I know that was important to Matt.
Matt joins a long family of different outside people who've tried to deal with the state as a whole group and saw what a beast it is to do, and he's handled it beautifully.
It was a heavy lift, and he was like, the Russian weightlifter. He just did it.
Joe, that was very sweet of you to say. And I know you're running off, so just be assured that when you're gone, we'll be talking all the shit about you.
Ken will probably want to rate the group. I know that I will be down there, but it's a wonderful game. Ken may play it with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody can kind of already guess that, like, if you were to, for me, rate the group from best to worst, it'd be tough the first, 9, but then the last one, that would be Joe.
This documentary got me thinking about comedy now in comparison to when you were coming up. How do you think you would approach the work, and how do you think the trajectory of the state might have been different if you were starting out in this landscape we have now with social media, with streaming? It's a totally different world.
I mean, it is amazing how different it was in terms of there was no YouTube, and there was, the fact that we ran around with a high 8 camera and made our own little shorts without anybody giving us the permission to do so, and editing them and bringing them into MTV was pretty unique back then. Whereas now that's what anyone can do much more easily. And of course, the demographic makeup of the group probably wouldn't be the same today, needless to say.
Fair. Do you think things are better or worse for comics today or comedic talent? Because on the one hand, you don't have the gatekeepers that you might have had in the past, but at the same time, there might not be the incubators like you would have in an MTV or a Comedy Central. Some of these things don't exist in the same form as when you were coming up.
I think it's wildly different, but it's also things just always churn and evolve and change. And I do sometimes think about what would my personal career look like if it was now, when there's just so much, we had the opportunity to do something that was a little bit unique at the time, and maybe now it wouldn't be. I don't know.
Well, I think if we were just getting started now, we would have the same passion and drive, and we'd be churning out, TikTok videos every day or whatever. Like we'd be like, all right, what's the thing? All right, now we got to do it. Like, let's do it. Overload with, sketches and stuff, and we'd be churning stuff out. It would be a different thing, but it would be the same energy and focus.
Also, though, I think if we were just starting out today, a lot of the community would be like, why is this group of 55-year-old men just now wanting to start a career in comedy?
This white sausage fest.
Yeah.
You kind of reflect on this in the documentary, but what do you think would have happened with the state had you stayed at Comedy Central? There was a possibility of more episodes there, right? Or they're different.
They gave us a nice offer to do another season, and in our bravado about ourselves at the time, we were just like, fuck you. And
did you say Comedy Central or MTV?
MTV, you meant.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
I would say a lot of us, if not all of us, felt in retrospect that was not a great idea.
It would have been great to just take them up on their offer of 40 episodes or whatever they wanted to do.
I think they offered us a raise and a budget raise and more episodes, and we felt like this is too small time for us. And we need to go to the big show, CBS primetime.
But we learned a lesson, and through the bumps and bruises of it, we kind of came out the other end, I think, more focused and then more appreciative of what we had. And I think that's one of the many reasons that we all still like stick together, because we knew we got to, with some distance, recognize how special it was.
And you could speculate that the days were numbered about the group existing as an 11-headed beast that did nothing else except with each other either way, just because each personality was so strong and so ready to individuate in different ways over the years.
Right. You mentioned just like being able to run wild a little bit on MTV. Like, are there other things that you think about the making of the state it's hard to imagine today, like the opportunity?
Certainly the use of music. We were required to go through the MTV music video library and just lay in songs from the day into all the sketches, which A, gave the show a certain veneer that would never have happened, and B, of course, today would have made every episode like $2 million in music licensing.
Didn't that tie up also the rights issues with the show?
Yeah, it delayed the DVD release for many years. And then when they finally did release the DVD, they had to strip out all the music and put in random other music.
But I would argue that I would say that the fact that was the case, and the state was hard to get a hold of for a while, and that all of a sudden there's sort of become these like sort of bootleg, versions of the state being passed along with the original music and stuff like that. Like the timing of it was sort of great and cool, added to the mystique or the kind of vibe of what this, the coolness of what I guess people liked about the state. It was hard to find for a while. And then it came out, we redid the music, and then everybody realized we were frauds.
And now you can watch it all on Paramount Plus, right?
That's right.
But what was amazing too, though, a lot of those bands, we approached them for the documentary, and this is an independently, produced and financed documentary, and we did not have a substantial music budget by any means. But those bands and those artists were all like, we love the state and we'll work with you. And like, and they wanted to help, and they wanted to kind of be a part of this film and this project. And we were able to get, music that never in a million years when I was cutting the film did I ever think we were going to keep those songs. And I would say we got probably 85% of them, which is insane. Never happens.
What were the most challenging aspects of piecing together this story? Like just on an archival level, it seems like pretty challenging to dig up all this footage.
Yeah. The archival level, the archival that the group kept was amazing, which is like a documentarian's dream, right? When someone's just like, I have this tape and we have all these photos, and it was unbelievable the degree of materials that people kept. And David specifically has, been a major archivist of the group's, history. And David and Carrie, I would say, are the ones who really just were constantly, I found this and I found this and I found this. But I think from a challenging standpoint, 11 backstories is a very difficult structural challenge, but I really wanted to make sure that everyone kind of got their moment in the sun, and like that this was a group and this was a family, and that everyone kind of got their story told in this project. So yeah, but finding the ins and outs of building 11 backstories into one, hour and 45-minute film, it was that was a challenge from a outlining structure editorial standpoint. But I think we did it well. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, you handled beautifully.
You found sort of an organic rhythm to it. You found a real organic rhythm to it, and found like at each point when you start someone's backstory, you're kind of at that moment where you're like, I want to know that person's backstory, and suddenly you do, and it's really cool.
No, thank you guys. And like what I tried to do is I tried to find in the overall linear kind of like a storyline of the film, which is a linear telling of the history, when are those kind of points to jump back into that person's story? When does that person kind of have a moment in this overall journey that makes sense to kind of jump back into that person's backstory. So that's how we ultimately did it. And yeah, I'm really, making this movie has been a dream. So like, it's been a wonderful experience, every aspect of it.
Just the idea of like capturing all those backstories makes you think of like that experience mentioned in the doc of like, how do you maintain your sense of individuality and your individual voice and what makes you unique when you're working within this huge collective? Do you want to talk a little bit about that, David and Ken?
I think doing it at the time in our lives and our creative careers that we did was the crucial thing. Like we bolstered each other, we taught each other, we influenced each other, we learned together, we grew together, and I think all of us were made more powerful by being in the group. And then probably at around the time that it made sense, we started kind of moving into smaller subgroups and doing things on our own. But it was hard, being together, getting heard among a group of 11 very strong personalities was often challenging and hard and sad. You're like, I want to make sure I get my moment on the show or the spotlight or whatever. But that, I think it built us muscles.
I always describe it as my comedy college, and without learning from all these sort of incredible comic minds and like kind of watching them learn as we were growing older and like kind of creating stuff, it shaped for me like my approach to comedy and writing and how to deal with like other creative people and the politics of it and the best and worst ways to do that. I've made mistakes and figured things out with this group, and so it helped me, and I think it helped everybody moving on when once we sort of stopped making money as a group and all had to survive on our own.
And in addition to the group being like a comedy college, in a more literal sense, we all went to NYU, which was like a different kind of college.
Yeah, a lot of ways. And some people might even say that it's in its own right a college.
Yeah, a university.
If you guys could bring back a sketch or character, like one from the States today, which would it be and why? Or would you
bring it back where? In real life? Like where are we bringing it back?
I don't know. Maybe like a spin-off or something.
One of the things I loved about the state is we focused on kind of premise over character a lot. Sometimes there were definitely memorable recurring characters for sure, but I also loved that we always were going for a concept at the same time, and it didn't naturally feel like, oh, let's make that character into its own show.
Were there any sketches or ideas that never made it to air that you still think would have been great?
I think there were tons of them that we like. That was the process of the group was so brutal at times. That like you'd bring stuff in and you were so passionate about it, and then like we'd do a vote, and if it didn't get a vote, some people would just rip it up and throw it away. Some people would come back and try to rewrite it. I was somebody who like kept bringing something back in with like changing it a little bit, hoping that I can kind of bully it through. And there are things that I know for me that I was like, oh, that could have been something, but it didn't happen. And I think, I would think,
yeah, of course. One of the things that we learned, I think, was the power of quantity. And, we would write 100 sketches before we choose one to get into the next level of maybe getting shot. And then we would shoot a bunch of sketches that we wouldn't put in the show. And there was a lot of volume. And so, yeah, there's a lot of memorable stuff.
One that I'm remembering right now, just off your question, is there was one that I wrote called The Lobotomies. And it was like a sitcom, right? But the whole family just had lobotomies, like Jack Nicholson at the end of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So they just sat there, but the rest of the structure of the thing was like a sitcom, and then like sitcom people would come and go, but the family would just sit there and not really move.
Didn't we shoot that?
No.
I have notes. I'll give them to you later.
I still think I wanted that to be a recurring thing.
One of the ones Ken and I wrote was about a guy who's got a message parlor. It's called Michael's Message Parlor. And then across the street was Michelle's Massage Parlor. but they had misspelled the sign, so it really said Michael's
So
Massage
people
Parlor.
kept going to the wrong place, and we thought it was so funny, and
Yeah.
everybody's like, "What? Why?"
And they would say, if that's how it's spelled, why don't you just change the sign? And the guy would go, I don't think so.
Yeah, they were. The punchline was, "I'm not going to change the sign."
And so, yeah, believe it or not, the group didn't go for it.
Yeah. What is your guys' sense of like where improv and sketch is today?
I think it's there's a lot more of it, and there's some really funny stuff, and there's some stuff that I'd be like, yeah, it's all right.
I think, as always,
Yeah.
I've seen some amazing. There's definitely some incredible, unbelievable comedic minds and performers. I've seen around LA, around the country, in the last few years. But yeah.
But I also like that on TikTok and like there are people who are making little short pieces and they have all the tools to edit it and they're learning that, and so you watch them come up with these sketches and they're in the middle of nowhere and they're putting them out there, and we get to see these great funny people with these funny ideas.
One thing though that I do find interesting and maybe unfortunate is that you have to kind of be a jack of all trades like we were. Now that's required, like being a great performer but not being a go-getter and not being a writer and a producer is not really enough anymore.
I don't think it ever was, though. I mean, was it?
In your ideal scenario, you would be able to just focus on the performance and the writing?
I think there used to be more of a structure, yes. I think you could be a great performer and get a cast in a sketch show or be part of something or get other writers come in.
Yeah.
But now I think it's in the age of social media, everyone's a one-man shop,
What about comedy in film and TV? You guys are filmmakers yourselves. So what do you think about that? What's going on?
Well, I don't think there are enough feature films made that are just comedies anymore, and that we're doing our best to change that.
Matthew, what about you for documentary? Like documentary is kind of in an interesting space. I'm curious about that and sort of what your ideal outcome is for Long Live the State.
Yeah, I mean, documentaries had a really challenging few years, in many ways in the marketplace. I mean, we had this kind of I kind of come at it from an interesting place because I was making documentaries starting 20 years ago, but before they were cool and before anyone really cared about them in any kind of commercial way whatsoever. And you were accustomed to kind of doing a much more smaller build word of mouth type release for your film. And I think as streaming came in over the past, decade, it gave documentaries an amazing platform to be seen by much, much wider audiences. But I think a lot of maybe not always the best documentaries got made in that process. And therefore there's been some contraction in the volume of documentaries kind of coming out today. Honestly, I believe in this film regardless of the platform it comes out on. I mean, I think streaming, obviously, we want it to be seen by as many people as humanly possible. But I also think I've watched it with my own eyes. It's, when people come together in a room to surround this story and these people and laugh and reminisce and have that kind of nostalgia trip together in a room, in a theater, it's a really special moment as well. So I think, I think the film really fits both avenues. And I just want people to see it. I hope that the film can kind of serve as a jumping off point for people who both maybe haven't thought about this show since, because if it came out when they were younger, or never fully kind of connected all the dots of look at everything this group and these people have done, or for new generations who aren't familiar with the show, it becomes that jumping off point for them to go discover it and to go seek it out.
I met people, even some that I think were at this screening and other, just wherever we go with our band and stuff, where they're like, I've been such big fans of you and Showalter and Black and Ken and Carrie and but I had no idea that you were all a thing before all this, and so that's very cool that people get to see the origins.
You mentioned the band. This is one of these creative projects coming out of your relationships that I thought was so cool. I was exposed to it at Netflix's Joke this past year, the Middle-Aged Dad Jam Band. Can you tell us a little bit about that and like what you've gotten out of doing that? It's pretty fun.
Just basically, as the pandemic was ending and as the strike was looming, we just a bunch of dads just started hanging out in the garage and playing rock songs just for fun, all hobbyists, and it was super fun. And we just put some clips online, and very relatively quickly evolved into actually being a band that plays covers and tours around the country, and it's been a blast. And we make all these YouTube videos.
But what is the current status of that? Are you guys like gonna tour more? Or...
We're doing an East Coast tour in July.
Wow.
And
come see us.
Yeah, please. And then we're continuing to make videos on YouTube on a regular basis, covers in the garage, and we just keep doing it. It's obviously our side hustle, but we continue to do it we work really hard on it because we just work hard on whatever we do, and it's fun, you know.
Absolutely. I saw that notice of that new film you're working on online. Anything you can tease?
It's somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours long, closer to an hour and a half.
And it's being edited. We're in my home right now, and it's being edited downstairs as we speak.
It looked like you were pointing at your crotch.
I am. No, I'm saying downstairs.
Oh, it's being edited in his pants.
But it's gonna be awesome. We're very excited about it.
Excellent. Well, such a fan of the work of the state and this documentary. David, Ken, Matt, thank you so much for stopping by and talking with us.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Matt.
thanks, Matt.
Anytime.
Thank you, Matt,
Right.
and thank you, Matt.
Comedy Means Business will be airing bi-weekly. The podcast can be found on Apple and Spotify. Please review and subscribe, and thank you very much.